Hello, my dear friends. Welcome back. As we navigate this journey of life, especially as we enter our golden years, we often find ourselves thinking about our health in new ways. We reflect on the past, appreciate the present, and hope for a future filled with vitality and clarity. One of the concerns that many of us, or perhaps our loved ones, ponder is the health of our minds, our memory, our cognitive function, the sharpness that defines so much of our interaction with the world. Have you ever found yourself searching for a word that used to come so easily? Or maybe you've misplaced your keys more often than you'd like to admit. These moments can be unsettling, gentle reminders that our brains, like the rest of our bodies, change with time. While some changes are a natural part of aging, there are other more profound conditions, like dementia, that can significantly impact quality of life. And while the prospect of dementia can be daunting, it's crucial to remember that we are not powerless. We have agency, especially when it comes to our lifestyle choices. Today I want to talk about something that is literally on our tables every single day: food. It might surprise you just how intimately connected what we eat is to the health of our brains, and specifically its potential role in the development or acceleration of cognitive decline and dementia. Think of your kitchen as the heart of your home, a place of comfort and nourishment. But within that very space there can be what I like to call kitchen lurkers, certain foods that, while seemingly harmless or even comforting in the moment, can quietly, over time, contribute to issues like memory loss and cognitive decline. It's not about fear-mongering, it's about empowerment through knowledge. By understanding which foods might pose a risk, we can make more informed choices, not just for ourselves, but perhaps for the older adults in our lives whom we care for deeply. So let's shine a light on these potential lurkers. We're going to explore 7 types of foods that research suggests could potentially accelerate the process of cognitive decline. It's a serious topic, yes, but we'll approach it gently, with empathy, and most importantly, with a focus on what we can do. By the end of our conversation today, I hope you'll feel equipped to look at your plate with a little more awareness and confidence, knowing that you are actively taking steps to protect your precious memory and brain health. So, settle in, perhaps with a cup of unsweetened tea, and let's talk openly and honestly about the hidden connection between our dinner tables and our minds. Let's start with the first potential lurker in our kitchen. 1. High sugar foods, the sweet trap and cognitive crisis. Sugar, it's everywhere, isn't it? In our coffee, our desserts, even in places we wouldn't expect like bread or pasta sauce, sugar provides quick energy, a fleeting moment of pleasure, and is often linked to celebrations and comfort. But consistently consuming high amounts of sugar can set a dangerous trap for our cognitive health. Here's why. When you eat or drink something high in sugar, your blood sugar levels spike. To bring them back down, your body releases insulin. Over time, if these spikes happen frequently, your cells can become less responsive to insulin, a condition called insulin resistance. This isn't just a problem for managing diabetes, it's a significant issue for your brain. The brain is a massive energy consumer, relying heavily on a steady supply of glucose from the bloodstream. But insulin resistance can impair the brain's ability to use glucose for energy effectively. Think of it like trying to power a sophisticated machine with a flickering, unreliable power source. This can lead to reduced cognitive function, difficulty concentrating, and over the long term, an increased risk of developing dementia. Moreover, high blood sugar can damage blood vessels throughout your body, including the tiny, delicate vessels in your brain. Damaged blood vessels mean reduced blood flow, which deprives brain cells of the oxygen and nutrients they need to function optimally. This chronic deprivation can contribute to structural changes in the brain and cognitive decline. What are we talking about specifically? Obvious culprits like candy, chocolates, cakes, pastries, cookies, and ice cream, but also less obvious sources like sweetened breakfast cereals, flavored yogurts, sauces, condiments, and processed snack foods that often contain added sugars like high fructose corn syrup. Even healthy-sounding items like granola bars can be packed with sugar. It's a sweet temptation, yes, and saying goodbye entirely might feel overwhelming. But being mindful of how much sugar we consume and choosing natural sweetness from fruits in moderation instead of added sugars can make a significant difference. Think about replacing that afternoon cookie with a handful of berries or opting for plain yogurt, you sweeten yourself with a touch of fruit. These small shifts can help keep that blood sugar roller coaster on a more even track, offering a smoother ride for your brain. 2. High salt foods, the salty burden on your brain. Salt is another fundamental part of cooking, enhancing flavors and preserving food. A little bit is necessary for bodily functions, but the vast majority of us, especially as we age, consume far too much. And this excessive salt intake isn't just a problem for our heart, it's also a potential lurker for our brain. The primary way high salt intake affects brain health is through its impact on blood pressure. Excess sodium can cause our bodies to retain fluid, which increases the volume of blood circulating and puts more pressure on our blood vessel walls. This is hypertension, or high blood pressure. High blood pressure is a major risk factor for heart disease and stroke, both of which are strongly linked to an increased risk of vascular dementia and even Alzheimer's disease. High blood pressure damages the tiny blood vessels in the brain over time. These vessels are crucial for supplying oxygen and nutrients and removing waste products. When they are damaged or narrowed, blood flow is compromised. This can lead to silent strokes, tiny areas of brain damage that you might not even realize are happening, or chronic hypoperfusion, reduced blood flow, both of which impair cognitive function, memory, and executive skills. Think about it. Your brain needs a constant, smooth flow of blood to perform its complex tasks. High salt intake disrupts this vital flow. Where does excess salt come from? It's not just the salt shaker on the table. A huge amount comes from processed and packaged foods, canned soups, instant noodles, processed meats like sausages and ham, pickled vegetables, savory snacks like chips and crackers, frozen meals, fast food. These are all notorious for their high sodium content. Even foods that don't taste particularly salty can be loaded with hidden sodium. Reading food labels is incredibly important here. Look for low sodium options and try to rely more on fresh ingredients, seasoning with herbs and spices instead of just salt. Reducing your salt intake is one of the most effective steps you can take to protect your cardiovascular health and, by extension, your brain health. It's a simple change that can yield significant long-term benefits. 3. Saturated and trans fats, the double threat to vessels and brain. When we talk about fats, it's essential to distinguish between the good guys and the ones we need to be wary of. Unsaturated fats found in olive oil, avocados, nuts, and seeds are generally considered healthy and can even support brain function. The lurkers we're concerned about here are saturated fats, and especially artificial trans fats. Saturated fats are typically solid at room temperature and are found in high amounts in animal products like fatty meats, butter, cheese, and lard, as well as some plant oils like palm and coconut oil. While the role of saturated fat in health is a complex and debated topic, high intake has traditionally been linked to increased levels of LDL cholesterol, bad cholesterol, in the blood. High LDL cholesterol contributes to the buildup of plaque in the arteries, a process called atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis narrows and hardens the arteries, restricting blood flow throughout the body, including to the brain. Just like high salt intake, reduced blood flow due to clogged arteries means less oxygen and nutrients reaching brain cells, impairing their function and increasing the risk of vascular dementia. Artificial trans fats are even more problematic. Created through a process called hydrogenation, they are often found in processed foods to improve texture, shelf life, and flavor. Think of commercially baked goods like pastries, cookies, cakes, fried foods like donuts and French fries from certain establishments, and some types of margarine and shortenings. Trans fats are strongly linked to increased LDL cholesterol, decreased HDL cholesterol, good cholesterol, and increased inflammation, all factors that contribute to heart disease and stroke risk, and subsequently, brain health decline. Many countries and regions have restricted or banned the use of artificial trans fats in foods, which is great news. However, it's still wise to check ingredient lists for partially hydrogenated oils. Choosing lean protein sources, incorporating healthy unsaturated fats, and drastically limiting intake of saturated and especially artificial trans fats is vital for maintaining healthy blood vessels and ensuring your brain gets the consistent, rich blood supply it needs to stay sharp. It's about nourishing your brain with the right building blocks, not clogging its pathways. 4. Foods high in aluminum. The hidden killer in everyday ingredients? Now this is a point that requires a slightly different level of caution and nuance. The potential link between aluminum and Alzheimer's disease has been a subject of research and public concern for decades. Early studies in the 1960s and 70s found higher concentrations of aluminum in the brains of people who had died with Alzheimer's. This led to a hypothesis that long-term exposure to aluminum could be a contributing factor. However, it's very important to understand that the scientific consensus today is that the evidence directly proving aluminum causes Alzheimer's or dementia is not conclusive. Many large, well-designed studies have failed to find a strong, consistent link between normal dietary or environmental exposure to aluminum and the risk of Alzheimer's. Regulatory bodies and major health organizations generally state that aluminum exposure from food, water, and packaging at typical levels is not considered a significant risk factor for Alzheimer's disease. Having said that, some researchers still believe there might be a subtle link for certain individuals or at very high exposure levels. Given the potential severity of dementia, it doesn't hurt to be mindful of potential sources of aluminum, especially if you are concerned. It falls into that slightly cautionary category, not definitive proof of harm, but perhaps something to be aware of without causing undue anxiety. Where might we encounter aluminum? Beyond cookware and foil, the link from cooking is considered minimal, especially with non-acidic foods. Some foods contain aluminum compounds used as additives. These include certain antacids, which are medications but ingested orally, baking powder, used in many baked goods like cakes, muffins, and biscuits, some food colorings and thickeners. Aluminum can also be naturally present in some foods and water and absorbed from packaging. The amount of aluminum from these sources varies, and the body is quite efficient at excreting most of the aluminum we ingest. The takeaway here isn't to panic and avoid all foods containing baking powder. It's more about being aware that aluminum is present in certain items, particularly some medications and highly processed baked goods. If you have concerns, perhaps discussing them with your doctor or a nutritionist is wise. 5. Processed meat products. The nitrite minefield. Processed meats are convenient and tasty, often staples in sandwiches, breakfasts, and quick meals. Think hot dogs, sausages, bacon, ham, deli meats like bologna and salami. However, these products often contain preservatives like sodium nitrites and nitrates, which are added to maintain color, flavor, and prevent bacterial growth. And these preservatives are the reason processed meats make our list of potential kitchen lurkers. The concern with nitrites and nitrates is that they can be converted into compounds called nitrosamines, particularly when heated at high temperatures, like frying bacon, or in the acidic environment of the stomach. Nitrosamines are known carcinogens, cancer-causing agents, and research has linked high consumption of processed meats to an increased risk of certain cancers, particularly colorectal cancer. More recently, some studies have also begun to suggest a potential link between high processed meat consumption and an increased risk of cognitive decline and dementia. The exact mechanisms are still being explored, but it's thought that the nitrosamines, along with other compounds formed during processing and cooking, like advanced glycation end products or AGEs, which are also linked to inflammation and disease, could contribute to oxidative stress and inflammation in the brain. Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress are increasingly recognized as key players in the development of neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. They can damage brain cells and impair their ability to communicate effectively. While the link between processed meat and dementia is perhaps not as extensively studied as the link between diet and cardiovascular risk, which, as we've seen, is strongly linked to dementia risk, the evidence regarding processed meat's overall negative impact on health, including potential inflammatory effects, suggests it's prudent to limit intake. Instead of relying heavily on processed meats, try incorporating more fresh, unprocessed protein sources like chicken, turkey, fish, beans, lentils, or tofu. If you do consume processed meats, perhaps view them as an occasional treat rather than a daily staple. It's a small adjustment that aligns with overall healthy aging strategies. 6. Sugary beverages, liquid poison for cognition. We already talked about high sugar foods, but sugary drinks deserve their own spotlight. They are perhaps one of the most insidious kitchen lurkers because they offer calories and sweetness with almost none of the nutritional benefits or fiber that might be found in solid food. This makes them particularly damaging when consumed regularly. Liquid sugar, whether it's sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, or even natural sugars in large quantities of juice, is absorbed very quickly into the bloodstream. This causes an even more rapid and significant spike in blood sugar compared to eating solid food containing sugar, especially if that food also contains fiber, fat, or protein, which slow absorption. These frequent large blood sugar spikes put a tremendous strain on the body's insulin response system. As mentioned before, this can lead to insulin resistance, which impairs the brain's ability to utilize glucose. Furthermore, chronic high blood sugar and insulin resistance are major contributors to type 2 diabetes, which is itself a significant risk factor for developing dementia. People with diabetes are at a significantly higher risk of both vascular dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Beyond the diabetes link, regular consumption of sugary drinks is associated with obesity, inflammation, and cardiovascular problems, all of which indirectly impact brain health. The lack of nutrients in these drinks means they displace healthier beverage choices like water, plain tea, or coffee, without added sugar, which can actually offer some brain-boosting benefits. What are the main culprits? Carbonated soft drinks, soda, are perhaps the most obvious, but also sweetened fruit juices, even those labeled 100% juice, can be very high in natural sugars with fiber removed. Sports drinks, energy drinks, sweetened teas and coffees, and popular drinks like bubble tea or flavored milk drinks. Switching from sugary drinks to water is one of the single best dietary changes you can make for your overall health, including your brain. Water is essential for brain function. Even mild dehydration can affect concentration and memory. If you crave flavor, try infusing water with fruits like lemon, lime, or berries, or opt for unsweetened herbal teas. It's a simple swap that eliminates a major source of cognitive risk. 7. Alcoholic beverages, the chronic neurotoxic erosion. Finally, let's address alcoholic beverages. Alcohol is a neurotoxin, meaning it is toxic to nerve cells, including brain cells. While much is discussed about the potential health effects of moderate alcohol consumption, which itself is a complex and debated topic, and the consensus is often that there's no safe level of alcohol, particularly as we age, the concern from a dementia perspective primarily lies with excessive and chronic alcohol use. Long-term heavy drinking can cause significant damage to the brain, leading to a condition known as alcoholic dementia, or alcohol-related cognitive impairment. This condition involves a progressive decline in cognitive function, including memory loss, impaired executive function, difficulty with problem-solving, and changes in personality and behavior.